Have you ever heard of a love story so strong it outshines every whisper of judgment? A story where a young woman chooses love over wealth, trust over doubt, hope over fear. This is not just any story. It is the journey of a girl who placed her whole heart in the hands of a man the world had already turned away from. What no one could foresee was that fate had been quietly crafting a surprise one far beyond imagination. And if you stay with me until the very end, you'll see that sometimes what looks ordinary is only a veil hiding something greater than any dream. In a small seaside town in Maine, where cobbled streets twist toward the harbor and cafes with white wooden frames spill out the scent of warm waffles, there lived a girl named Lily. Lily wasn't the kind of girl who made heads turn with dazzling beauty. Yet those who met her remembered her for something else: a quiet kindness, a gentle smile, and a simple belief that true happiness could never be bought. But her parents thought differently. In their dreams, their daughter would marry a wealthy man, someone who could offer a solid house, a life without worry, a future wrapped in safety. To them, peace came with a price tag. One summer evening, in the soft glow of a friend's wedding reception held in a wooden lodge, Lily's eyes caught sight of a man standing quietly at the far end of the room. Not the groom, not one of the laughing groomsmen raising their glasses. He was different. His shirt was faded, his shoes worn at the heels, and his calloused hands carried the map of a life built on labor. Lily had meant to look away, but something about his stillness held her there. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He didn't laugh too loudly or fill the silence with words. He was simply present, like a low, steady note beneath a bright melody. And then, when their eyes accidentally met, he smiled. It wasn't a bold smile, nor was it crafted to charm. It was gentle, honest, and so quietly kind that Lily felt her heart stumble. Later, as the bride passed by Lily's table, she leaned down and whispered, pointing towards the man, "That's Jack. He fixed our porch roof before last year's storm. A good man, though people don't often notice." Just like that, his name was etched into Lily's mind, Jack. From that moment, whenever she thought of the gentle smile at the back of the room, his name seemed to settle into her heart, tethered to warmth and sincerity. Unlike the men in sharp suits boasting with polished words and expensive laughter, Jack seemed out of place. And perhaps that was exactly why he stood out. In the days that followed, as if fate had stitched it into the fabric of her life, Lily found herself crossing paths with him again and again. At the weekend farmers market, where the air was sweet with strawberries and vendors called cheerfully from their stalls, she spotted him by a stand of flowers. While others reached for bright, costly bouquets, Jack carefully chose a simple bundle of daisies wrapped in brown paper. The way he looked at them, soft, reverent, made Lily see that he was someone who could find beauty in what the world overlooked. At the town's old library, where sunlight filtered through dusty windows, their eyes met once more as she bent to pick a book. He offered only a small smile before slipping away, leaving behind the faint scent of old wood and an absence she couldn't help longing to fill. Another time, at a charity drive for children, Jack appeared again. He didn't boast, didn't linger and chatter. He simply handed over his offering with a bow so deep it seemed to hold all the gratitude in the world. No unnecessary words. Yet Lily felt she had been given something more than thanks. Respect. There was always something different about Jack. His kindness wasn't loud. It was woven into quiet gestures, the sort that asked for no recognition. He didn't need to tell her he cared. The way he noticed, the way he listened to things unsaid was enough. When rain came suddenly, he didn't hand her his umbrella. He held it above them both, letting the storm soak his own shoulders. When her arms were full of heavy bags, he carried them without fanfare, never once complaining. And so slowly Lily's heart began to change. She didn't know when it started, but she found herself smiling at the thought of him. It wasn't a wild firework of feeling. It was gentler, like the glow of a small fire in a hearth steady enough to warm a room. Jack never confessed, and Lily never asked. Yet both seemed to know silently that a thread was being woven between them. Fragile and visible, but stronger than words. Still, not everyone saw Jack through Lily's eyes. One afternoon, as she passed a cafe, she overheard two women at the window whispering. Their voices were laced with disdain. He's penniless, no family name behind him, no real career, no future. They giggled as though his life were nothing more than a foolish tale. Lily stood still. She didn't interrupt. but something sharp stirred in her chest. And she asked herself the question no one else seemed to dare. Why should money matter more than kindness? For in that instant she knew Jack's goodness was worth more than gold. Lily sat still, the mocking laughter echoing behind her. Yet, instead of sinking into shame, her heart beat with a strange defiance. Why should it matter if he has little, she thought? A kind heart is worth more than gold. The very next day, Jack gathered every ounce of courage he had and walked toward Lily. It wasn't a grand moment, not the stuff of sweeping declarations. It was late summer when the sun had softened its blaze and the maple leaves above them had begun to turn shades of honey amber and deep red. They stood beneath an old tree where the breeze stirred the branches and golden leaves spun slowly downward like an invisible dance welcoming them. It felt as though the world had hushed itself, leaving only the two of them and the steady thrum of two hearts. Jack shifted awkwardly, not knowing where to place his hands, pocket sides or clenched into fists to hide their trembling. He took a deep breath and began. His voice wasn't polished with sweet, rehearsed phrases like the heroes of romance novels. It was rough, hesitant, honest. But it was this very awkwardness that wrapped around Lily's heart. Every word carried both fragility and strength. The fragile bravery of a man daring to open his heart wide. Lily listened, and in every pause, every stumble, she felt the rawness of his truth. What moved her wasn't the words themselves, but the courage beating beneath them. It was that courage in the hush of the wind that struck the first note of a love story she had never seen coming. "I don't have much to give you," Jack said, his voice as soft as a wave breaking on the shore. "But I promise you, honesty, loyalty, and a love that will never fade." Lily looked up and met his gaze, steady, unguarded, and as if he had laid his soul bare before her. In that silence, she knew his words weren't fleeting promises, but the unspoken anthem of his life. Her heart swelled. In a world where people flaunted wealth and polished words, here stood a man who valued truth above appearances, love above all else. From that moment, a new world opened between them. On late afternoons, they walked along the shore when the tide slipped away, leaving seashells glistening on the sand. Jack listened as Lily spoke of her library work, her favorite books, and small-town tales. He rarely interrupted, just nodded now and then, his eyes alight whenever she laughed. At the autumn fair among country music and golden lantern light, Jack bought Lily a stick of cotton candy, a treat she had long forgotten. He fumbled with it, got sugar on his shirt, and they laughed until their sides hurt. It wasn't glamour, but in that moment, Lily's heart brimmed with pure joy. When winter came, Jack brought her hot tea to her door, his calloused hands reddened by the cold, but determined to shield her from the wind. On snowy nights they sat in a small cafe, windows misted with breath-playing word games with book titles. Jack wasn't much of a reader, but he listened with such patience that his quiet sincerity melted into her heart. As time passed, their bond grew stronger. Lily discovered her happiness wasn't in grand gestures, but in the small things Jack did, leaving a white daisy on her desk, or a folded note with the words, "I believe in you. You can do this." One early spring evening, with fresh green buds stretching on the maple trees, Jack led Lily to a hilltop overlooking the town. The sky was painted in strokes of violet and gold, the air rich with the scent of damp earth and new grass. He had no diamond ring, no crowd to witness. Just his rough, warm hand holding hers, his eyes bright, yet trembling, as though placing his whole fate in her answer. "I have no castle, no treasure," Jack began, his voice carrying into the quiet. "The only thing I have is a heart that has belonged to you since the very first moment. If you'll have me, I promise to spend my life keeping your smile safe, shielding you in every storm, and turning ordinary days into something extraordinary. Lily, will you be my family?" Her breath caught. The sunset cast a golden glow on his face. The face of a man offering no grandeur, only the deepest truth of his heart. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she smiled. "Yes," she whispered, "I'll walk with you. Not for what you have, but because you are you." But when Lily told her parents about Jack, the familiar kitchen, once warm with apple pies and comfort, turned into a battleground. The yellow lamp threw long shadows across the wooden table, etching every anxious line in their faces. Her mother slammed a spoon against the table, its sharp clang slicing through the air. Her eyes flared with fear and anger. "Lily, how can you even consider marrying him? He has no stability, no future. Do you think he can give you the life you deserve? You'll make us a laughingstock." Her father, usually calm, frowned deeply. His voice fell heavy as iron. "Marriage isn't just love, daughter. It's about building a foundation for the future. Think carefully. Don't let your emotions carry you away." The air grew thick, pressing against Lily's chest. Her hands trembled in her lap, but beneath the wave of resistance, her heart grew steady. She drew in a deep breath, as if inhaling the strength of the sea breeze spilling through the open window. "Mother, father." Her voice wavered at first, but her eyes shone with an unshakable light. "I understand your fears. I know you wish for me a life of comfort and ease, but I cannot choose a life full of riches yet empty of love. I want a partner who will walk with me through every storm, and that person is Jack." Silence fell, broken only by the steady tick of the clock, each strike a drumbeat pressing her words deeper. Lily's voice, quiet but resolute, landed in the room like a stone on still water, sending ripples no one could erase. Her parents exchanged glances, eyes sharp with disappointment, helplessness, and fear of what they couldn't control. Time stretched unbearably before her mother exhaled, her shoulders sinking in surrender. Her father gave a slow, heavy nod, the weight of a mountain in a single gesture. They had yielded, though their faces bore the scars of disapproval. Lily saw it all, felt the sting in their eyes. Yet she smiled serene. For the first time in her life, she was not living by someone else's expectation. She was living by the call of her own heart. On Lily's wedding day, the quiet white wooden church by the sea hummed like a broken beehive. Whispers slipped between pews, heads shook with pity. Sighs filled the air. Some said she was making the greatest mistake of her life. Others called her naive, foolish, even tragic. But Lily did not waver. In her simple gown, wearing old shoes borrowed from her cousin, she walked the aisle strewn with wild daisies. Her chin lifted, her heartbeat steady. Her eyes glowed with a peace so deep it could only belong to someone who knew exactly what she was choosing. At the end of the aisle stood Jack, his hands clasped tight, his gaze sparkling as she drew closer. After the vows, their marriage began in humility. They rented a tiny flat in the old part of town, walls peeling floorboards, creaking furniture gathered from second-hand stalls. Lily learned to cook in a kitchen so narrow it allowed room for just one person to turn. She scrubbed the weary windows to coax in more light and stretched their meager budget to make a chipped wooden table feel like the heart of a home. Jack worked tirelessly, sometimes coming back late, his shoulders dust-stained, his hands hardened with yet another layer of callus. Some evenings, too tired to do more than collapse into a chair, he still remembered to smile and ask, "How was your day?" He never missed her stories, never forgot to look her in the eyes, as though that right there was the most important part of his life, and he never failed to give her his full respect. Their nights held no fine wines, no glittering parties. Instead, there were simple meals, sometimes just soup and bread. But they ate together, laughed together, and let conversations drift long past midnight. Lily's laughter rang through their little apartment like bells, and Jack listened as though she were the only story he ever wanted to hear. But the outside world was not as gentle. Neighbors whispered behind half-closed doors. Relatives sneered during rare gatherings. Even strangers cast Lily looks of pity. That girl could have had everything, and she chose nothing. The words pricked like needles, sharp and relentless. Lily heard it all, and she let it pass through her like storm winds, sweeping off the sea only to dissolve in silence. Each night before sleep carried her away, she whispered to herself, "One day they will understand that love is worth more than riches." Jack, too, saw the cruelty of the world, but instead of fighting back, he chose silence. When Lily squeezed his hand and asked, "Does it hurt you hearing what they say?" he simply smiled, a smile so calm it broke her heart even as it comforted her. "Let them think what they will," he answered softly. "We know the truth of our hearts. That's all that matters." But behind those quiet eyes where gentleness always lived, something else lingered, something Lily had no idea of. A secret held so tightly it could unravel the little world she trusted. A truth that once revealed would change everything. the whispers outside, and the very rhythm of her own heart. The days slipped by in seeming simplicity. Their lives spun within the humble cycle of work and bills. Yet each night when Lily wasn't looking, Jack would drift into a silence of his own. He sat by the window of their small apartment, moonlight brushing across his face, his eyes fixed on a horizon that wasn't really there, gazing instead into the weight of memories too heavy to share. Lily noticed. She always noticed. But rather than press him, she chose patience. She believed that one day when the time was right, Jack would open the hidden door to that quiet part of his soul and let her step inside. But love, no matter how beautiful, must walk through trials. Jack's modest wages barely stretched to cover their bills. Sometimes Lily counted coins, carefully planning meals down to the last slice of bread to keep their little home afloat. Often she pushed aside her own longings. A new coat, a book she yearned for, just to make sure Jack had enough strength to face another long day of work. Their apartment was poor, but their love inside it was so abundant it defied measure. To Lily, each simple supper, each warm clasp of his hand, was worth more than jewels glittering behind glass. Yet the world outside would not leave them in peace. The whispers grew sharper, louder. "Look at Lily," neighbors murmured, shaking their heads with pity. "So beautiful. She could have married anyone wealthy. And she threw it all away." The words pricked like thorns. They grazed her skin, left faint scratches she carried quietly. But Lily never let them reach Jack. She shouldered the sting alone, hiding pain behind her smile, guarding his pride, as though she were shielding a fragile flame from a merciless wind. One evening, as night fell over the tilted rooftops of the town, Clara, Lily's closest friend, came to visit. She sat in the tiny living room, her eyes clouded with pity and confusion. "Lily," she said softly, "I don't understand. You deserve so much more than this. You need safety, stability. Why tie yourself to a man who can't give you any of that?" Lily only smiled, her smile flickering like an oil lamp, never dazzling, but steadfast. Her eyes glowed with the gentle light of faith unshaken. "He gives me love, Clara," she whispered. "And what could be more precious than that?" Clara sighed, her fingers tightening around the steaming cup of tea. She knew no words could chip away at the rock-solid belief in her friend's heart. Yet in Clara's eyes lingered unease, as though she were watching someone she loved walk barefoot on a road strewn with stones. And Lily, even as she smiled, carried a quiet sadness too. Not because she doubted Jack, she never did, but because she wished others could see him through her eyes, the tenderness in the way he listened, the honesty in every touch, the silent strength no wealth could ever replace. That night when Jack returned weary and dust-stained, Lily welcomed him with open arms. She rested her head on his shoulder and whispered words soft enough to chase away both the cold outside and the whispers that lingered in the dark. In that moment, their small apartment seemed to fold into a world of its own, where love remained the only currency that mattered, no matter what the rest of the world believed. On the nights when Jack returned, weary clothes dusted with the day's toil, Lily always reached for his hand and whispered, "I'm proud of you." And strangely, those words alone softened the shadows in his tired eyes, as though his strength came not from his own muscles, but from her simple, unwavering faith. Time passed, and life did not grow easier. Winter arrived on the Maine coast, sharp and merciless cutting, like knives through the air. Their little apartment turned icy, the floorboards so cold Lily had to curl into worn blankets just to keep warm. Some nights her breath fogged into pale clouds in the dark. Yet never once did she complain. But Jack noticed. He saw the way her shoulders trembled in the night, the way her frozen hands disappeared beneath the covers. And in his eyes there flickered guilt, as though invisible chains of regret were quietly dragging at his heart. He longed to give her more, a life of warmth and plenty. But for reasons Lily could not yet know, he stayed silent, carrying his secret as if it were a private burden he could not set down. One night, Lily woke with a start. The pillow beside her was empty. Jack was gone. Panic surged. She ran through the apartment calling his name, only to find a scrap of paper left on the worn wooden table. "I'll be back before dawn. Trust me." Her heart raced each minute, stretching unbearably long. And then the old wooden door creaked open, a rush of icy air spilling inside, and Jack stepped through. his coat crusted with snow, his face veiled in something unreadable, like a mist too thick to see through. Lily rushed to him, but he only pulled her close and whispered, "Forgive the secrets I keep. One day you'll understand." The words shook her, but Lily didn't press. Love gave her patience and faith gave her strength. Then one morning, the town buzzed with a rumor. People swore they had seen Jack near the city's financial district, stepping into the glass towers where men in suits and women in high heels came and went, where money and power seeped through the walls. At first, Lily laughed it off, dismissing it as another cruel invention of gossip, but the whispers persisted, clinging like sea spray to the rocks relentless. Finally, Clara, Lily's closest friend, came to her, eyes filled with worry and suspicion. "Lily," she said, her voice more serious than ever, "they're saying Jack is hiding something. Are you sure? Do you really know the man you married?" Lily's heart trembled, but she stood tall, her eyes blazing with unshakable trust. "I know his heart, Clara, and that's enough." Her words rang firm, but in the quiet of night, when she was alone, her mind filled with questions. Why did Jack vanish for hours? Why did he deflect whenever she spoke of the past? Why did shadows sometimes flicker in his eyes? Shadows too deep to name. She tried to push the thoughts away, to grip her faith tightly like someone holding a candle against the wind. But still, somewhere deep inside, the flame of doubt flickered, small, persistent, waiting. And Lily knew in the depths of her soul that one day the secrets Jack carried would step out into the light. The turning point arrived without warning, as though fate had been quietly waiting for this very moment to turn the page. That weekend, Lily and Jack received an invitation to a community charity event. Lily thought little of it. Just another small gathering, a chance to share a few stories, nibble on pastries, and contribute to the town's fund. But the moment they stepped through the dark wooden double doors of the grand hall, Lily's world shifted. Crystal chandeliers glittered above, scattering light across sweeping gowns and perfectly tailored suits. The room brimmed with successful businessmen, women adorned in jewels that shimmered like stars, and even local officials. Before Lily could take in the grandeur, something happened that made her breath falter. These people, the wealthy, the powerful, were walking toward Jack. They clasped his hand, warmly greeted him with genuine familiarity. One woman, pearls strung elegantly at her neck, smiled at him with unmistakable respect. Lily's heart thundered in her chest like a drum. Why were they treating Jack, her humble, ordinary Jack, with such regard as though he were one of their own? Startled, she tugged gently at his sleeve and whispered, "Do they know you?" Jack froze, his eyes flickering between truth and concealment, between the safety of silence and the risk of revelation. A shadow of conflict crossed his face. "Lily," he said softly, his voice lowered as if fearful of being overheard, "there are parts of my life I've never shared with you, not because I don't trust you, but because I wanted to shield you from judgment. But tonight, I can't hide it any longer." Before Lily could reply, a man in a finely striped suit approached. His expression was dignified, his tone weighted with respect. He bowed his head slightly to Jack. "It's an honor to see you again, sir. The council is waiting for your opinion." The council opinion, sir. The words crashed through Lily's thoughts, unraveling everything she believed. She turned to Jack, her eyes wide, lips trembling, but no question found its way out. Jack tightened his grip on her hand. His touch was warm, yet heavy, as though he were passing her an ancient, unspoken truth. His face was calm, but his eyes brimmed with 1,000 words unsaid. "Lily," he murmured, gentle but resolute, "what you know of me, that I am poor, that I am just a simple man, that is only part of the truth. I chose humility. It was never forced upon me." The world around Lily blurred. The lively conversations, the soft music all dulled, until the only sound she could hear was the pounding of her own heart, the man she thought she knew so well. Jack kind, Jack humble Jack, was not ordinary at all. For an instant, it felt as though the ground had been swept from beneath her feet. And yet, in his eyes, the tenderness she had always trusted remained, and that more than anything made her heart tremble, yet kept her from turning away. "Jack, what's happening?" Lily whispered, her voice trembling. He tightened his hold on her hand, his gaze soft but heavy with truth. "Lily, the truth is, I was never poor. Before I met you, I inherited a fortune from my family. But I walked away from it all." Her breath caught, stilled in her chest. I needed to know, Jack continued, his voice low, but steady. If I had nothing, would anyone stay beside me? I wanted to find someone who loved me for who I am, not for wealth or for status. And then, I found you. Lily's eyes widened, her heart stumbling to a halt. His confession swept over her like a storm, tearing apart everything she thought she knew about the man she had married. You mean all this time you've... Jack nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. Yes, I am the rightful heir to a vast business empire. I could have given you mansions, jewels, cars. But instead, I chose to give you the truth of my heart first. I needed to be certain that the woman I married would love me even if the whole world turned its back. And you, Lily. You proved that love in every moment. Tears blurred Lily's vision, softening the glitter of the chandelier above them. In the rush of emotion, memories flooded back the bitter winters when they huddled together beneath thin blankets. The nights Jack returned exhausted, but still asked about her day with a smile, the cruel whispers of neighbors and the pitying glances of strangers. Through it all, not once had Lily doubted her choice. She had chosen him, not for what he owned, but for who he was. And now destiny revealed its secret reward, as though whispering to her that true faith is never wasted. That evening peeled back a new portrait of the man Lily thought she knew by heart. One by one, industry leaders approached, shaking Jack's hand with respect, addressing him by his full commanding name, Jack Whitmore, a name she had never heard spoken with such weight. They spoke of international investments, strategic partnerships, and decisions that shaped entire industries. And yet, amid the clinking of crystal glasses, the grandeur of chandelier light, and the swirl of conversations too large for her world, Jack remained the very same man she had fallen in love with. His smile was still gentle, his words still measured, and his eyes, always, searched for hers, as if in this room of power and wealth she was still the only one who mattered. Later that night, as they walked back to their old apartment, Lily's steps faltered on the cold stone pavement. She stopped, her breath spilling into white clouds, her voice breaking. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Do you know how hard it was hearing them mock you? Mock us. Jack paused. His hand cupped her face, warm and steady. Because I needed to be sure, he said softly, his voice low like a winter river. Lily, this world is full of people who chase after money, who pretend at love while the gold is shining. But you stood by me when all I had to give was my heart. I wanted you to have the chance to prove, to yourself and to me, that love alone could stand firm. And you did. Now, everything I have, every piece of my inheritance, belongs to us. Lily wept, but not from sorrow. Her tears came from the fullness of truth unfolding before her eyes, the truth of what her love had unlocked. Through sacrifice and faith, she had stepped into a life far larger than anything her parents, her neighbors, or even she herself had ever dared to dream. The days slipped by, and life began to change. Their cold, cramped apartment gave way to a wide, sunlit home. Yet, in Lily's heart, the memories of thin blankets in winter, of simple suppers, of nights when they shared breath in the dark, remained untouched, like a red thread binding their souls together. Though the grand new villa stretched across the green hillside, Lily never let luxury swallow the simplicity of her soul. She filled the house not with crystal chandeliers or rare wood, but with laughter, kindness, and small, everyday moments of love. Each room glowed with warmth rather than display. Jack often reminded her on evenings when they sat by the window, watching the sun slip away. We may live in abundance now, but let's never forget those nights in our tiny apartment when supper was simple and our dreams were everything. Her parents, once doubtful, once disappointed, now looked at their daughter with both respect and gratitude. One evening, her father sat in quiet thought before admitting, "You chose well, Lily, not because Jack is wealthy, but because he is a man of honor. We were blinded by money, but you saw with your heart." The neighbors who once mocked the relatives who once whispered now fell silent. No one offered pity anymore. Instead came respect, sometimes tinged with envy, for Lily had proven a truth that real love rises above wealth, above appearances, above every judgment. Yet Lily had never sought such recognition. She didn't need it. The only thing she cared for was the love she had chosen, the man who had tested her courage and then returned it with a truth more precious than gold. Each night when Jack held her close, Lily whispered, "If I had to choose again, I would still choose you, even if it meant living in poverty forever." And Jack would press a kiss to her forehead, answering with certainty, "And I would still choose you, even if it meant giving up everything I have." Their story, once told only in whispers, spread further and further. People spoke of Lily as a symbol of faith, of Jack as a symbol of humility. Together, they became proof that destiny always rewards the hearts that dare to trust. For Lily, life had come full circle. What began with doubt and ridicule had blossomed into a love song of triumph. She had chosen love, and in return, fate had given her not only a husband, but a companion, a soulmate, and a treasure measured not in riches, but in the endless wealth of devotion. It was never a story about poverty or riches, but about choice. The choice to love even when the world doubted, the choice to stay even when life was hard, the choice to believe until love bloomed into something extraordinary. And if anyone were to ask Lily the secret of happiness, she would smile her answer as simple as her heart. Choose love, even if it means walking through the storm. Because in the end, what you hold in your hands is not wealth, but the one who holds your hand. Years later, when the little seaside streets had changed, when the old cafes had given way to glowing bookshops or new storefronts, Lily and Jack still kept their ritual of walking together each late afternoon. They strolled slowly, hand in hand, speaking only of the simplest things, the scent of waffles drifting from a bakery, the murmur of waves off the coast, or the sparrow that stubbornly clung to their window ledge. No one remembered the cruel rumors of long ago. No one mentioned that Lily had once thrown everything away, because in the end, they themselves had become proof that love could build a world far greater than any fortune. In their home, Lily filled the garden with sunflowers, the flowers that always turned toward the sun, no matter the shadows. She said they were the picture of their love, always reaching for the light, no matter how fierce the storm. Jack still carried the same gentle smile, his eyes never ceasing to search for her across a crowd. To him, Lily remained the truest choice, the greatest treasure he had ever held. Their story did not close with fireworks or fanfare. It closed with moments so ordinary they became sacred laughter in the kitchen hands, clasped through winter nights, and a gaze brimming with a love that would not fade. And there where once a girl had chosen to trust her heart, where a boy had dared to test fate, love continued to write its story, quiet, steadfast, and eternal as faith itself.